So in this video we're going to look at some basic editing techniques inside Premiere Pro and how we can use them in combination to put together a scene. The footage that we're going to use today is from cinestudy.org, which is a great little organisation who provide a bunch of resources for educational purposes. You can also use them to enter competitions as well. They put some competitions out every now and again. And this is just a basic scene of a couple talking in a restaurant. Now, normally when you were working in Premiere Pro, you would probably start by dragging a clip onto the timeline like so, and then you would start editing it and cutting it up. So this is the entire clip, so you can see here that we've got everything within the scene. So say for example we wanted to start the scene here, we would get our razor tool, we would cut, and then we would move forward, and then we would cut again, and then we would probably press and delete those two bits, so it would give us our little bit of footage that we wanted. And that's a perfectly good way of doing it. It would take a little bit longer though if you did it that way. What a better way of doing it is instead of doing it directly onto the timeline, is to actually preview it up here in the source panel. So what you can do is you can find the part of the clip that you want to use. So let's say it's that bit again, and you can use what's called in and out points. Now they're here on the timeline, so in and out, or you can use I on the keyboard or O on the keyboard. So I'm just going to use the markers here. So select my in point, and then I'm just going to do it before he enters the screen and select my out point. Now what I can do now is I can just drag that onto my timeline, and that's now brought me just that little piece of the sequence here. So once you've done that, you can start piecing the next part of it together. So you'll need to think about what the next shot is. So probably the next shot is of him walking through the door. So let's have a look. So let's have him walking through the door here. So let's just set our in point. So around about there, in, and there, out. And then drag that piece onto the timeline. And what this does is it saves you huge amounts of space on your timeline. You're no longer having to cut things and take things out. You've now got a much better workflow and a much tidier workflow, and you can start piecing your sequence down your timeline. Once you've got all the sequence put together roughly, you can then start to tweak it a little bit. So you can use some of the other tools to start tweaking things, and one of the tools that I use a lot is the Ripple Edit tool. This Ripple Edit tool is great. So what this does is that it enables you to pull or push the in points or the out points that you've already selected. So when you selected them up here, you probably weren't that accurate. You were probably just, eyeballing it and getting roughly where you wanted to, but on the timeline you want to be accurate and getting it absolutely perfect. So where she looks up here, we want to get her looking up just before he walks in the door. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring that back to about there. So what I can do is I can get my Ripple Edit tool and just drag that back. And what it'll do is it'll bring everything else back with it. So it'll just delete that gap in between. So now she looks up and he walks through the door. So he walks over, and then the next scene is he's walking past the camera here. So let's have a look, see if that looks okay. That looks pretty good. And let's just have a look at the continuity. So he's taking his jacket off. He's got his jacket over his forearm, so it's on his forearm here, but then when we come to it, it's on his elbow. So let's just move that forward to the point where it's on his forearm, about there. And again, what we can do is get the Ripple Edit, drag that back, and now we should have that continuity much better. And let's see how it happens when we get him sitting down. So he's coming in. Let's take it so that he's just a little bit, so we cut into her like that, get the Ripple Edit, drag back, and now he's coming in like so. It looks like I've got that one a little bit tight, so I'm just going to change that. I'm just going to push that forward a little bit. So I'm going to push this one this way. I'm going to push this one this way a little bit, so we get a little bit more of that. And then get it about there. So you can push and pull until you're happy with And again, he's sitting down twice there. So he sits down there, and then he sits down there. So we need to make sure that is consistent. So let's have a look at that. And looks okay. So really simple, really quick and easy ways to edit using the Ripple Edit tool.